everyone, and welcome back to the Football Fignuts podcast. If you're keeping track at home, this is our 8th season and our 9th episode. That's number 319 overall. My name is Britt.
And I'm Stephanie.
And Steph is joining us today because Craig, if you were here last week, Craig's voice has only gotten worse. How that's possible, I have no idea. So we are joined by a brand new contributor. Please welcome Steph. Steph, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing today, Britt?
I am hanging in. It is a warm day here in Connecticut, but we are doing the best we can. Steph is married to our good friend and contributor, Sean, so feel bad for her there. Also feel terrible for her. She's a Giants fan, but on top of all those things, she is a rabid football fan and has played fantasy with us now for the last 3 or 4 seasons?
Yeah, ever since we started the podcaster league.
Right, which you won the first year, as I recall.
I did.
So she is eminently qualified to be joining us today. We've been waiting a long time to get her on here, so we are happy to have her. So let's jump right in. Let's start where we always start. Steph, what are you drinking tonight?
I have Shipyard Smashed Pumpkin.
Oh.
It's officially fall season, and my pumpkin beers are now in my fridge.
Is this the 4-pack we picked up a couple weeks ago when we were both at Total together?
Yes.
You're still working off that. Oh my God, that 4-pack would not be still in my fridge after 2 weeks. That is Smashed Pumpkins. They're so good. Smashed is so good. If you've had Shipyard Pumpkinhead, this is their extra aged, super alcoholic version. Have you had it this year?
Yes, this is my second or third one.
Okay, so how does it compare to previous years? Because there's always subtle differences sometimes in the fall beers. Is it as good as previous years?
It is. There's a lot more pumpkin flavor than I feel like other years. It's more pumpkin-y, less spicy.
Ooh, intrigued. I haven't had one yet this year.
I'm very happy with it.
I am on diet soda tonight. Why? Because I realized after falling asleep on Sean and Steph's couch on Sunday that I had been drinking for 5 straight days. So my liver begged me to take 3 or 4 days off. So here we are. So, yeah. All right. Steph's got a pumpkin beer. I've got diet soda, and we've got a ton to talk about. Let's start with burning hot takes. Steph, do you want to give or receive?
I will receive.
All right. This one comes from our good friend and mysterious contributor, The Source. The Source noted that this week, in week 1, the average team offense in passing was only 188.5 yards. There was only a handful, not even, I think he said 2 or 3 quarterbacks over 300 yards. There was a team that didn't even break 10 points. Giants, sorry. What the Source wants to know from us is this the sign of a shift away from high-powered passing, or is this just a week 1 outlier? What do you think? Are we seeing a shift in offense, or is this just week 1?
I think this is week 1. I think you have a couple quarterbacks who are shaking off a little bit of rust that didn't get cleared during preseason. I think you have a couple of offenses that just haven't seen the momentum going into week 1 that they should have had, that should have made them more successful. But I think we're going to go back to seeing the heavy passing game. I think we're going to go back to seeing the long downfield passes as we get more into the season.
I think you bring up a great point. A lot of it is offensive symmetry. How many quarterbacks are in new places this year, early in their second year in new places? The Vikings have a brand new starter. The Steelers, the Falcons, the Pats, the Colts, if you count the fact that Anthony Richardson was only there for 4 games last year. These are all the Bears. So I'm looking down the list right now. The Raiders. These are all teams that have made significant change at quarterback. The Browns, if you really think about it, because Deshaun Watson was useless last year and got hurt. I think there's a lot to be said for that symmetry.
It's the same thing for the Jets. I mean, they're starting with Aaron Rodgers, who completed, all of 3 minutes of last season?
Yeah.
So they're another team that once he gets going and they get that momentum, they're going to be a high passing team. They're going to have a lot of passing yards.
So I think this is an interesting thing we're going to have to watch. And 2 or 3 weeks from now, we can revisit it. I think that number only goes up. The 188 continues to go up. I think you're right. This is just week 1 jitters. So, all right. What have you got for me?
So I have a burning hot take.
Yeah.
On the Giants front office and their decisions regarding the off season.
Okay.
Okay. If anybody else watched the HBO special that they did for the Hard Knocks, there was a portion of it when they were talking about Saquon Barkley leaving and whether he would go for anything on the market. I think Shane was very short-sighted in thinking that nobody was going to spend the money on a difference maker like Saquon Barkley. I think he misused the money that we saved, not re-signing Saquon Barkley, because he did absolutely not enough to our offensive line. And I think that him and Dave will have a lot to answer for this season if it continues to go with the way they played in week 1.
So let me ask a question based off of that. As a person who has watched the Giants for several years, are you worried or do you sense a regime change if they don't turn things around this season?
I think because Shane was so lackadaisical about Saquon leaving, and Mara was pretty clear that he was going to have a hard time with the decision to let Saquon go. I think that Mara may be thinking it's time for a regime change if after this many years they're not making the decisions that are in the best interest of the team.
So what do the Giants have to do? And Brian Daboll and I forget the GM's name.
Shane.
What are the Shane what?
Joe Shane.
Oh, Joe Shane. So what do Brian Daboll and Joe Shane need to do to save their jobs? Do they have to make the playoffs?
I don't think they have to make the playoffs, but I think they need to start making hard decisions on who's the right fit for the team. I don't think that they really took a look at the talent that we have and put the effort into upgrading where we needed it. I think they focused on areas that were already progressing and getting better and just put more effort into those and the things that they had continued to let go year after year, including the offensive line.
And including your quarterback. I mean, how much longer are we going to give Daniel Jones here?
So
realistically.
I was trying to avoid Daniel bringing up his name because it tastes very ugly in my mouth right now.
That's fair.
He's shown us year after year that he's not someone that's improving.
Yeah.
He has consistently year over year actually done worse. There has not been very many bright spots in his career, with the exception of that first year when he gave us that little tiny bit of hope. And then it was kind of like we gave him the kudos for the playoffs, and then he just kind of was like, okay, I did it.
I can see that. So, I can definitely see that.
You know, when you're someone like me who does a lot of social media following, who does a lot of listening to other podcasts, getting information from so many sources, hearing things like at the first game, you had the Giants' top 100 players that were still around. That included Carl Banks and Lawrence Taylor. At halftime, apparently, Lawrence Taylor leaned over to Carl Banks and said, I could get 22 guys off of the 100 that we have and play a better game than they are right now. And we're talking 50, 60-year-old men.
Wow.
Okay. Don from the K Show had a really good point. It's not just Daniel Jones. We can't just blame Daniel Jones. No, he's not helping the situation, but the entire team is failing. The only bright spot we had was the one play on special teams when they down the punt at the 1 yard line. That should not be the highlight reel of a New York Giants football team.
Okay. I can hear that. That's a good one. All right, I have one more. This one was brought to us by our other contributor, Cinch. Cinch pointed out during the offseason he was the only one of our team to not rank Joe Burrow in his quarterback rankings. And he indicated he had serious concerns about Burrow's ability to bounce back from injury. What we saw out of the Bengals this week was not really awe-inspiring. Are you worried from a fantasy perspective about Joe Burrow, or is it just a matter of time?
I'm back and forth on that one. I think Burrow has the capability of bouncing back from injury. I don't think he's ever going to play as well as he originally did before this injury. But I don't think from a fantasy perspective, we are going to see a huge decline. I think you're going to see some points lower. You know, we're talking maybe 4 to 5 points of a difference. But I don't see it being a huge disadvantage to fantasy owners.
Okay. I feel like I need to see something from him before I'm going to trust him in DFS. I actually have no shares of him in redraft this year, and that was quite intentional. I think this week at Kansas City is going to be a big test. And if he can't get the ball downfield, then this game is going to get ugly fast. Right now, KC is a 5.5-point favorite. This game could get out of hand if Baltimore. If Cincy wants to win this game, it's gonna have to be with spreading the field. And if he can't get the ball downfield or get it sideline to sideline, then this is gonna be ugly this week. So, all right, good, excellent. But now, are you ready to play America's favorite game?
Sure.
She says that like that's not the confidence level I'm looking for here. I'm looking for a yes on that, but that's okay.
Absolutely ready for this.
Okay, no, you already missed your moment. We gotta move on. Okay, America's favorite game. For those of you who have not heard this before or need a reminder because it's been a while since we played it, I take a look at the over-unders for the week, and my partner, in this case it's going to be Steph, is going to attempt to guess which ones have a 50 or more over and which ones have an under 40 over. Why? Because there's a high correlation between scoring points in real life and scoring points in fantasy. Who knew? All right, so I looked at the lines this week. There is one game that is over 50 points. As a guest here, you will get 3 chances to tell me what that game is. If you are correct, you will carry over any additional strikes to the under portion of the game. So, can you tell me? Oh no, where did it go? Oh, disaster. There it is. Okay, wait, no. Yep, I got it. Okay. Can you tell me what is the one game this week that has an over-under of at least 50 points? Vegas's highest scoring game of the week. Which game is it?
You know, I'm looking at the list of games this week, and as silly as it sounds, I have a feeling it is actually going to be the Bears-Texans games.
Bears-Texans, where are you on my list? Nope, that's a 45.5, so that is close, but that is strike one.
Okay.
She's looking for a 50 or over, folks.
I mean, part of me wants to say it's going to be Chiefs-Bengals, but like we talked about, I don't know if Burrow's going to be able to put up those points.
So are you using that as your second guess, or are you moving on from them?
I'm moving on from them.
Okay. Don't run an ad.
Let's go with the Saints-Cowboys.
Saints-Cowboys is actually a really good guess, but it's wrong. That is also 45.5.
I am so close yet so far. You know what? I'm going to take my last pick, and I'm going to go the Bengals-Chiefs.
Bengals-Chiefs is, unfortunately, a 47.5, so that is a strikeout. The correct answer is the Tampa Bay Bucks at the Detroit Lions. The Lions put up so many points at home that they're a 51.5.
Really?
So let's start there before we get to the under part of the competition. Who do we like in that matchup? Obviously, Detroit's stacked, right? I mean, you got to use Amon-Ra St. Brown where you can. You gotta like Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, I know he's still a little hobbled, but you know, I even see what his numbers were last week. Let me pull that up really quick. I've got a soft spot for Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not gonna lie about it. Why can't I open this? Gibbs stats. Do it live. He had 11 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. That's not bad for a guy who's supposedly hobbled. You know, 11 carries for 40 yards, and that's only going to increase as he goes on. I got to think that he's going to do bad things to the Tampa Bay defense. So I do like several Lions. And as much as I hate to admit it, the passing game in Tampa is not terrible with Baker. You got to watch out for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Is there anybody on these two teams that you're like, man, I'm excited to start him this week?
I mean, you're always excited to start Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean,
100%.
Hands down, that's going to be your number one top pick outside of Jared Goff. Because if him and St. Brown can make the connections that they normally do, you're going to get a lot of points between the two of them. Someone who I'm looking forward to seeing more out of, and I'm hoping that he's going to get to play this week, is Jameson Williams.
I don't know. What's his status?
5 of 9 targets for 121 yards and a touchdown.
But he's not on the injury report right now, right? He was coming off the injury report.
He's coming off. He practiced limited today from an ankle injury, so I'm hoping he's going to play this week.
That's what it was.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he does because he's more leaning towards a value pick.
And you know who we didn't mention too, but you've got to pay attention to is Sam Laporta. He didn't have the most spectacular game. He was 4 for 45, but We know the volume's going to be there. We know that if they can't get the ball downfield, they're going to look to him. So I think there's a lot to like in that game this week. So
Absolutely.
Bucks Lions is the only game over 50 points. There are 3 games that are under 40. Abysmal matchups that nobody wants to go see, including the people playing in them. With 3 fresh strikes, can you tell me the 3 games we want to avoid from a fantasy perspective?
Well, I mean, obviously we want to avoid the Giants game because Giants and Commanders are not scoring over 40 points.
Aren't they, though? The over-under is 44. That is strike 1. 44, because neither one have a decent defense either.
But there's no, with the way, okay, I'm going to continue and move on. I'm not going to argue that point.
Let me look and see what so the line is -1.5. So not only do they think that they're going to get that means like a 23-21 final. So we don't think the Giants can get the 21 points.
No.
Wow. Stephanie says bet the under.
Yeah.
Stephanie says, you heard it here, folks. Bet the under.
Browns, Jaguars.
Nope. Strike 2. Browns, Jaguars is a 41.5. Got one more chance. There's 3 names on the list. Or 3 matchups on the list, I should say. Jaguars can put up points this week, but I think
they can. Jaguars can, the Ravens can. The Jets, Titans. It's calling my name. But I'm going to go with the Rams, Cardinals.
Rams, Cardinals is actually a 49. So that is strike 3. Sorry. You do get a copy of the home version to play at home with your family, though. The correct answer is Chargers, Panthers is a 39. I think that's honestly, I think that's a gimme because the Panthers look terrible. The Chargers are a running first team now. They let their best receiver go, so I'm definitely avoiding that matchup. Seattle, New England is a 38. Seattle put up some points this week. New England managed to beat the Bengals, but I think that's a one-off, so that's a game I would definitely want to avoid. And the last one was the one I thought for sure you were going to get, and that is Steelers at Broncos. It's only a 36.5. And I am a well-known Steeler hater, so I am more than happy to avoid that game.
So, I was looking at those, and I was trying to give credit to the offenses because I felt that the defenses were going to be a little bit weak on week 2 for them.
Okay. I mean, I can see that with the Chargers. I have no faith in the Panthers. I have no faith in New England. I have no faith in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is going to start Justin Fields again this week.
Okay.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I can't get behind that. I wasn't excited about Russ either, but I can't get behind Justin Fields. Is there any universe in which you would trust Justin Fields this week?
There's no universe where I would trust Justin Fields ever.
Wow. That is strong words.
Strong words. I'm a Bears fan, so I've had to watch him play more than I would have cared to. And again, he's another underwhelming. He showed up for like 2 games, and then it kind of seemed like he just faded.
Right. Ugh. Justin Fields. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I said I have very strong opinions. I'm not very wishy-washy on these.
That's good. That's good. All right. We are moving right along this week. That is fantastic. We're making excellent time this week. Let's move on to doing some DFS and looking at the value plays for this week. So let's start with quarterback. I am looking at my projections and my value plays for the week. There are a couple of names. Last week was really thin. This week we've got like 7 or 8 names in the quarterback ranks that could provide really good value. The first one on my list is Jaden Daniels. He's only 6,200 on DraftKings. That means he basically needs to get to 18.6 points. And against the Giants in a game where they're expected to score 23 points, I think he can probably do that. The other person, if I want to pay up a little bit, is Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes did not have a stellar opener, but there is, if we're wrong about Burrow and Burrow's arm is okay, that game could become a shootout. And at 7,000, all he's got to do is throw a couple of touchdowns and beat Patrick for half a game, and he's going to get there. Are there quarterbacks this week that you look at and you say, man, this matchup or this value is going to be really great?
So for me, Jared Goff. He's 6,400 this week on DraftKings.
Okay.
I think him against Tampa Bay. I don't think Tampa Bay's defense is going to have a great time stopping because he has so many targets. I think he's going to have a lot of fun spreading the ball this week.
Interesting. My projections only have him at 18 points, but that doesn't make a lot of sense given what we've already discussed in the points you just made. We already have identified that's a 51 over-under. They're a 7.5 point favorite, which makes their projected score approximately 30 points. They're not getting to 30 points without Goff throwing a couple of touchdowns and making some plays. I may have undervalued Goff this week. 6,400 actually makes a lot of sense. I actually kind of, now that I'm just looking at the bones of it, it looks better than Jaden Daniels at 6,200. Okay, that's a good one. Is there anybody else in the quarterback ranking you like, or are you you're riding with Goff this week?
So, I mean, if we're talking, if I'm not spreading the money as wisely as I should be, and I'm spending it all at quarterback, I'm going with, oh my goodness. And he's my quarterback in my draft fantasy.
Who's that guy?
Lamar Jackson.
Oh, you think Lamar bounces back this week?
Lamar Jackson had a fantastic week last week.
Was it good enough?
It wasn't good enough, but from a fantasy perspective, he was one of the top.
Mm-hmm.
He had 38 points last week.
They're at home against Vegas. Vegas ain't exactly a powerhouse.
He had 35 points against Kansas City last week. Kansas City, while their isn't great, I think it's absolutely better.
Oh, yeah. I've got him pegged for 22.5 points. It's just his price point's too high for me. I actually like Goff better at 6,400 than I like Jackson at 7,700.
Oh, absolutely.
I see what your point. All right, cool. Those are excellent insights. I think I may have undervalued Goff, so that's good to know. Running backs. This week there are no clear value plays. I don't see anyone who's outright like, oh my God, you got to use them. I do see somebody who everyone is high on, and I'm tempted to go high on, but I'm not sold on it yet, and that is J.K. Dobbins. They only put him at 5,400. Carolina is not that good, and if the Chargers are going to get some points on the board, it's going to be on the ground. So if you want a cheap option, I like Dobbins, but I'm not really sold on it. I'm actually probably going to spend up a little bit here. In my mid-range, I love Jamar Gibbs at 6,600. We just talked about how Detroit is supposed to put like 30 points on the board this week. And like I said, Goff is going to have to be a big part of that, but that also Gibbs is going to have to be involved in that game too, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had a touchdown or two. If I'm looking top shelf, as much as it hates for me to say it, the Tennessee defense is bad, and Breece Hall is there, and it's supposed to rain. And rainy games mean running games. So if you like Breece Hall this week at 7,400, use him. But I'm probably going to put a fair number of shares on J.K. Dobbins and Jamar Gibbs this week myself. Who do you like this week?
So I went more mid-range with my running backs this week.
Okay.
I did Jerome Ford because I don't think Nick Chubb is going to play this week, and I think that Cleveland's going to have a much better time running the ball on Jacksonville than they against the Seahawks.
That does make a lot of sense. Where do I have him on here?
And at 5,900, I think he's a nice mid-range player that you're going to get.
The way that the salaries are running right now, anything under 6, I would consider value. The 6 to 7K is like your mid-range, just for now. I'm looking at these values. I'm looking at guys like Kenny Walker, 6,300. James Conner, 6,400. Najee Harris is 5,500. He's a cheap guy right now, but not anywhere near worth it. I mean, in that range, I would absolutely be looking at potentially using him, because I think if he's under 6K, then he's definitely value. Who else did you have in mind?
And another one is actually Brian Robinson from Washington. And again, he's another one. I think they're gonna run all over the Giants. The Giants' defensive line is not stopping the run efficiently at all, and I think he's gonna have a really great game.
Interesting. He's also another person who's relatively cheap. I'm having him at 5,800.
Yep.
I guess my concern is, do we worry about the Austin Eckler effect? Are we worried that we're going to see Eckler cut into his usage?
Because the Giants defense is so weak, I think they're going to have fun spreading the ball. I think they're going to be another one that you're see a pretty evenly balanced play calling. I don't think you're going to see one more than the other because I don't think Williams is as strong as a quarterback as they need yet. Well, no, not Williams.
You mean Robinson? Oh, Daniels.
Daniels.
Yeah.
I keep confusing the Bears and the Commanders this week.
Understandable. They're both really bad.
I don't think Daniels is going to be as accurate, even though he's going to have more time in the pocket. I think they're going to get a lot more of the ground game, but I think it's still going to be pretty even.
I mean, he was 17 for 24 for 184 yards, but he never threw anything longer than 32. He got sacked a couple of times. I think there is and he scrambled a bunch. He's actually their leading rusher. He scrambled 16 times. Well, scramble/designed run. He ran the ball 16 times last week. To your point, Brian, what's that?
I don't think they're going to give him that much leeway this week. I think they're going to force him to stay in the pocket more.
And if that's the case, then they're probably going to be looking to hand off a little bit more. I mean, Brian Robinson had 12 carries last week. Eckler only had the 2. Eckler had 4 catches on 4 targets, but even that means he had 6 touches compared to Robinson's 15 when you add in his catches. So it does look like they're using Robinson twice as much. So that would be, I think the reason he's at 5,800 is people are scared about the Eckler factor. But if you're not scared about the Eckler factor, it's an amazing call. Anybody else you got in the running back ranks?
I mean,
oh, there's somebody she doesn't want to say.
I don't want to spend the money.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so I love doing somebody who if I am going to pay up, I'll pay up for. So feel free. If you were going to pay up for somebody, who would it be?
If I'm paying up for Breece Hall.
Breece Hall. Yeah, that was the one I was going to pay up for at 7,400.
I have to agree with you on that because I think that he's another one that I don't think Tennessee's offensive line is gonna stop the run as effectively as they need to be. And I think
the defensive line,
going to have or defensive. I think I need to drink a little bit more because I'm either not sober enough or too sober.
Either way, it's fine.
I think he's another one that I don't think Aaron Rodgers is in a position to throw as well as he has in previous seasons. I think we're going to see a lot more handoff on the ball until the Jets are confident in his passing abilities again.
One of the things that does sober me up just a little bit about Breece Hall is Fantasy Pros has him projected at 20 to 30% market share. So that really doesn't matter too much in the cash games, which is usually what we focus on here. But you may, if you're on the fence about Breece Hall, that 20 to 30% usage is a little high. You might want to consider going with somebody else. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to use Breece Hall this week. I think a lot of people are thinking the same way we are, is that Tennessee is not going to be able to stop him. So, I mean, we may even be undervaluing him. That's entirely possible too. All right, let's move on to wideouts.
Yeah.
Wideouts. Okay, wideouts this week. I got no true value plays, and I got one huge name. One name, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? And then I've got a name that we haven't talked about in a long time. So let's start with the huge name. Tyreek Hill against Buffalo at home, 8,700. This is an over-under of 49, and it's only a 2.5 point spread, which means they're thinking 26-23 roughly. I think this game is going to be a lot of back and forth, and I think Buffalo does such a great job crowding the line, particularly with Mostert out. We know Mostert is not going to play this week. And A-Chain landed on the freaking injury report today. He was in a limited practice today. So I think there's a pretty good chance that they start throwing the ball around, and we have seen that Tyreek can handle that. It's just his price tag at 8,700 is so prohibitive. But if I'm going to pay up, that's where I'm going. If I want mid-range to lower range, believe it or not, I'm going to look at Malik Neighbors. And the reason being, as much as we talked about how the Giants need to have a lot of work to do, with an over-under of 44, he's probably going to be involved in the passing game. And I think a lot of people are going to back off him this week, so his ownership is going to go down. And at 5,900, all he needs to do is get to 18 points. It's doable. It's not something I would love to do. I'm not calling value out of him, but if I got to, I will. Now, the name that nobody expects. Nobody expects the Spanish acquisition, and nobody expects DeMarcus Robinson. Puka Nacua is hurt. It looks bad. I know, I'm sorry, Cinch, since you're listening, I know you're a Puka lover. You're a Puka truther. He looked bad. I think this Demarcus Robinson could step in and have an immediate impact in a game that's going to be high scoring. And he's only $4,000. I am absolutely going to have shares of Demarcus Robinson in my DFS lineups this week. I'm probably going to have a balance. And you know what? If I spend only $4,000 on Demarcus Robinson, I can probably save up enough money to get Tyreek Hill at 8,700. So I think there is value. That's a value-added play myself. Who do you like this week at wide receiver?
So DK Metcalf against New England.
Anyone against New England, right?
Anyone against New England, but I think DK's speed, even though he's getting up there, I think he's still a phenomenal player. And at $5,900, I think he's a great fit for somebody looking for not quite, it's mid-range to value, but I think that he's another one that's going to score a great amount of points against New England. And this one's going to be, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about this one.
Okay.
But how do you feel about Christian Watson at $5,000 against Indy?
I am concerned because of the Jordan Love injury. Otherwise, I would love it. I think Watson has a lot of potential, but I think a lot of his potential comes from his synergy with Jordan Love. I am talking about the right guy, right? Green Bay?
Yes.
Okay, geez. I'm not even drinking. I have no excuse. I think a lot of his upside came from the Jordan Love factor. I don't even know who's starting this week for Green Bay. Who's their backup? Who's playing? I'm looking right now. I don't even know off the top of my head. Oh no, that's Malik Willis. Okay, no, sorry, can't touch. I can't touch anybody in the Green Bay passing game myself this week. But if I'm wrong, it's a super sneaky pick. How much is he?
5,000.
Oh,
I know.
He gets like 5 catches and into the end zone, and he's got value.
And that's the thing, is he doesn't need a lot to get the value. He's going to be someone who's minor production, and I think he's going to get more production than we think. I think Malik Willis is going to panic and send the ball, and I think Christian Watson is going to be that guy that goes out and finds it for him.
It's too gutsy for me, but that is a great tourney pick right there. Putting that into a GPP pool where you're in with like 4,000 people and all of a sudden percentages matter might be really, really influential, because I'm projecting DK Metcalf at under 5%, and I'm using Fantasy Pros' numbers here, under 5%, and I'm scrolling down to find Watson. Where's my buddy Watson? I probably passed him. Let me see if I can find him. But he can't be high-owned either. I can't imagine there's a ton of people who are going to go out look for him. Why can't I find him?
The problem is that you've got Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs.
Romeo Doubs, yeah.
So that is the only drawback, is that out of the 3, he's the one with the least amount of receptions. But again, you only need 5 catches and a touchdown.
So Christian Watson, I've got it less than 5% as well. So that is very interesting. I'm intrigued by your idea here. I am intrigued enough that I am going to see about putting this into a lineup, which we're not allowed to do. We can't talk about the results online, but we could talk about it offline. So wait, so some of the names we talked about Watson, right?
Uh-huh.
If we lock Christian Watson into a lineup, if we lock DK Metcalf into a lineup, who else did we feel strongly about at the value plays? You had a couple of running back. Who'd you feel strongly about? You liked Breece Hall, right?
I did. I did.
You can pay up for Breece Hall because you're saving money there. If I just lock those 3 people into a fantasy lineup optimizer, again, I love Fantasy Pros. If you've never used their optimizer, I believe all you need is a basic account to use it. I lock them in. I'm looking at their optimizers showing me a lineup that's 127.7 points. And the names I'm seeing in it are not bad. I mean, if Christian Watson and DK Metcalf put up some numbers, you might be on to something there.
And then
anybody else?
My last one is Jameson Williams, who we talked about earlier.
Detroit.
Detroit. Yep. I think him against Tampa Bay. If he is healthy and he plays, because again, he was limited at practice today, at $5,300, if he can get another game like he did last week, you're set, because he's another low value player where you only need 4 catches and a touchdown.
Interesting. I just, by the way, I just put in our group chat, I just put a snapshot of the optimized lineup, because guess what, folks? it is illegal for me to share a lineup in the podcast, but I can share it with Steph. So sorry, all I can do is suggest you look at it the same way she does and lock in Breece Hall, DK Metcalf, and Christian Watson and see if it works for you. All right, let's move on to tight ends. Or how are we on time? Are we doing okay? We're doing okay. We got to move on to final takes in a minute or two, but we got enough time to talk about defenses and tight ends. So let's talk about tight ends this week. Again, another week. I love cheap tight ends early in the season because tight end is that one position where there's 3 or 4 names every year, right? Depending on the year, it's Kelsey, Kittle, and Andrews, or it's Laporta's in the mix. There was the one year everybody was like, oh my God, it's going to be Kyle Pitts breakout year. The bottom line is there's never more than 4 names or 5, but 10 people are going to be tight end ones. So that means that bottom 5, and that's if there's no super shocks, that bottom 5 are going to be value early in the season. And one of those possible names is Brock Bowers. I'm not going to use him, but at $4,400, it is glaring at me. Now, Vegas stinks, and Baltimore's defense is good, which is why I'm going to avoid him, but he is so cheap. You can't not at least think about it and see where you're going. The other names I really like this week, I really like Kobe Parkinson. Yeah, Kobe Parkinson, but he's like the second stringer. Yep, Trey McBride is still going to get the bulk of the load. However, he's only 3,100, guys. If this guy gets into the end zone once, he's value. And if you're not sold on Trey McBride, and a lot of us aren't, Kobe Parkinson could be a sneaky play at 3,100. Will I use him? Absolutely not. I'm probably going to use some of the advice that Steph has given me this episode and save up so that I can use Sam Laporta at 6,300. I try not to spend that much. Well, I got to spend somebody less. Dalton Kincaid, 5,500. I was talking with Terry Zhang, one of the captain of our Twitch team earlier today, and he was saying to me he thought Dalton Kincaid could have a really big game. Let me run this by you really quick, and I'm going to hear your tight ends. He got offered a optimized bet. Dalton Kincaid over 4.5 receiving yards in the first quarter. What do you think?
I like that.
1 catch, but it's got to be, basically 1 catch, 4.5 yards. Essentially, the way they play Dalton Kincaid is 1 catch, but it's got to be first quarter. And I said to him, the only thing that makes me nervous is that Buffalo tends to go him later.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm sitting here saying, Dalton Kincaid at Miami in a game that could be a shootout and could be really aerial. Dalton Kincaid could have a big game. 5,500. I'm probably going to have a lot of shares of Dalton Kincaid this week. But who do you like this week? What are you looking at?
So I actually have Mark Andrews.
Oh, bounce back game, huh?
I think it's going to be a bounce back game. I think he was one of those guys that just needed to shake off a little bit of rest. I don't think he got enough playing time during preseason. Mm-hmm. I think that against Las Vegas, that they are a defense that he's going to just have fun running his routes.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a great short field option. I think he's going to get most of his points in catches instead of yardage. But he's still always going to be a threat in the, 20 to 30 yard range.
So you're looking for volume this week. How many targets would you say you expect him to have? It could be a range.
So he only had 2 targets last week for 14 yards, but I'm thinking he's probably going to get 12 to 13 targets this week.
Wow. Go ahead.
I think it was an off week for Lamar Jackson. Those two have always had great connection.
True.
They've played together for a long time. They know each other's game well, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that out in the Raiders game.
I was going to put him in the 5 to 10 range in terms of targets. So you think even 10 plus? If you had to put a range on, you're saying 10 plus.
I think he's suited to come out this week against Las Vegas. I think he has a lot to prove after last week. Mm-hmm. I think he knows it, and I think that he's gonna make the opportunities to get those targets.
Intriguing. I love this pick. I mean, Isaiah Likely's only 4,800, but we don't think he comes anywhere near last week's production, right?
I don't. I think that this was his welcome to the big game for the first season of the year, or for the first game of the season. I think that Mark Andrews is old reliable. Mark Andrews is going to he's going to have to step aside for Isaiah Likely at some point. I don't think this is the season he does it.
Anybody else you like at tight ends, or are we moving on? It sounds like you're sold on Mark Andrews.
So I'm also sold if I've got the budget. I'm actually also going to be sold on Kittle against Minnesota.
5,500, a little more expensive, but not like super high. All right,
Nope.
Tell me why you like this.
So I don't think Minnesota's as good as the Giants made them look last week. I don't think they're that good. I think San Francisco's a much better team. I think George Kittle has some great route running capabilities. I think he's going to create separation downfield, and I think he's going to be someone that you're going to see yardage out of.
Okay, I think those are great choices, and they're both in the value ranges, which is great. All right, let's move on to defenses really quick. Defenses, as you guys typically know, are just, you do what you can afford. All the people that are playing really bad teams are really expensive this week. The defense I'm looking at, believe it or not, I like the Chicago Bears at 2,600. Yes, they're in Houston, but yes, I think Houston is still due for a little bit of a reality check, so I like them. I'm not really looking to pay up any more than that. And I'm looking at the other names, and I'm like, no, I don't want the Cardinals at 2,300 against the Rams. I don't trust the Packers against Indy. So I'm probably going to take the Bears against Houston and hope that their defense can make a difference. Is there anybody in the defensive ranks you like this week?
It's funny. I actually like the Packers against Indianapolis.
Okay. 2,600 is not a bad price. I just don't trust Indy.
I think Indy's one of those hot and cold teams. I don't think they're going to capitalize on Jordan Love being out and it being Malik Willis. I don't think they're going to be as disruptive to him as people are expecting for Malik Willis to come in. So I think that, I don't think that Malik Willis's coming in is going to disrupt the defense.
Oh, I know what you meant. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
To throw them off their game enough that Indy's going to make any type of production. I think that you're going to, if anything, you're going to see a tired Packers defense at the end of the game because they're going to spend more time on, because I think that Green Bay is going to be productive, and I think they're going to move down the field quickly.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I'm
bad news
on Malik Willis. I am. I know he hasn't always shown out, but I think with some better coaching that he's going to get out of Green Bay, because Green Bay has produced some fantastic quarterbacks, I think you're going to see an improvement this year.
Okay. Believe it or not, we're out of time. We got to move on to our final thoughts. So lead us out. This is your first time. Just your final thought going into week 2. What do you want our listeners to know?
Final thought is, watch your second string players, because, you're one injury away from having to find somebody who's going to back up your star that got injured.
Absolutely. My final thought, I'm going to go outside of football, because we would absolutely be remiss if we didn't take a moment and recognize that today is September 11th, and that is a very significant day in American history. We come here, we do this for fun. We have a good time talking about football. So we didn't want to harp on it. We didn't want to lead with it, but we definitely want to close out by just saying, we recognize it's a very solemn day. Our thoughts are with the families of the survivors of the attacks, and hoping that everybody is doing well, and just never forget, guys, this was a big deal. So Stephanie, thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate having you on. I appreciate your insights. I feel like I got some interesting insights tonight, and that's normally not something I feel out of this. No offense to my normal contributors, but normally they have a hard time convincing me on their picks, and I didn't feel like that happened tonight at all. So thank you for joining us. Let me just remind folks that the best thing you can do to help our podcast is to leave us a review wherever you have found us, usually on the Apple Podcast Network. Leave us a review. You can also reach out to us. We are on Facebook at the Football Fignuts Podcast, and we're also available via email the traditional way. We are fignutsdfs@gmail.com. Steph, did you have a good time?
I did. This was great. I want to do this again.
We will definitely have you back. We love rotating our contributors in whenever we can. So we will definitely have you back. Hopefully Craig's voice will get better next week, and maybe I could take a week off. How about that, Craig? How about you do? Oh wait, I have to take next week off. I'm going to the Big E.
Yeah, Craig will be by himself because we'll be with you.
Oh no, you guys are going the day after, I thought.
Oh, day after. Oh, so Sean does have to do the podcast. Maybe Sean and I will be together.
He doesn't have to do anything. We can get Cinch to do it or make Craig do it by himself. Either way. But all I know is it won't be me. Someone will be here next week, folks. So thank you for listening. Until the next time we speak, my name is Britt.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we are the Football Fignuts Podcast. Hi, Deb.